A Colombian court orders former President Alvaro Uribe to be freed from house arrest. Armenia and Azerbaijan accuse each other of violating a ceasefire. And the Internationalist Festival of People in Resistance is underway in Venezuela. Hello and welcome to TeleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. A Colombian court has ordered former President Alvaro Uribe to be freed from house arrest while he's being investigated for possible witness tampering. Colombia's Supreme Court ordered Uribe detained in August during the investigation, arguing that there was an ample evidence to show Uribe had engaged in trying to pressure former paramilitaries into retracting damaging statements against the former president. But the High Court relinquished control of the case when Uribe resigned his Senate seat, handing it to the Chief Prosecutor's Office. Magistrates have since ruled that Uribe should be tried under a different legal framework designed for ordinary citizens, paving the way for his release. A temporary ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan has begun following nearly 2 weeks of fierce fighting in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. The ceasefire was agreed on Friday after 10 hours of talks in the Russian capital Moscow, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the two countries should now begin substantive talks. The truce aims to enable an exchange of prisoners and the recovery of bodies. More than 300 people have died and thousands have been displaced since the latest violence in the long-running conflict broke out on September 27th. Nagorno-Karabakh is run by ethnic Armenians, although it is officially part of Azerbaijan.
If there's a ceasefire and the conflict is resolved in a peaceful way, then that's fine with us. That means we will not lose more soldiers.
The ceasefire is not a good thing. We need to go further. We should press on with the war and take back our territories.
However, shortly after the truce taking effect from midday local time on Saturday, both sides accused each other of breaking it. The Armenian Defense Ministry accused Azerbaijan of shelling a settlement inside Armenia, while Azerbaijan's Defense Ministry said Armenia was blatantly violating the ceasefire regime and firing into the Azeri regions of Terter and Agdam. Moving on, the Internationalist Festival of People in Resistance is currently underway with progressive leaders from all over the world taking part. During his intervention at the virtual event, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro spoke about how a better world is possible and what needs to be done to achieve this.
We have faith in our struggle. A better world is possible. That is what our people said back in the 1980s, when capitalism and imperialism declared their absolute victory. A better world is possible, a multilateral world, which includes all of us. A world where people's needs are placed above everything else. A world where we can stop climate change and revert the ongoing destruction of our environment. A world where we can achieve true equality among all humans. A world where we can promote real human rights and social change. We need to guarantee access to work, to healthcare, to education, to housing, to culture, to recreation. All the people of the world need to have access to their riches. We need to distribute wealth more equally. A better world is possible, where we can finally put an end to imperialist wars, to colonization, to threats of violence against all people. Venezuela has been targeted non-stop by the U.S. empire over the past few years. We are living under a non-conventional war, as they besiege our economy, our political system, or industries. It's also an armed war, as this year we were able to quell an armed invasion of our territory by mercenaries trained in Colombia. There are over 1,000 mercenaries being trained in Colombia right now by the armed forces.
Mass protests reignited in Chile on Friday to demand widespread reforms to the police force. But in response to the mobilizations, President Sebastián Piñera referred to demonstrators as criminals, adding that they must be confronted with all possible legal instruments. Friday's protests were so large that police were forced to withdraw from the iconic Dignity Square in Santiago, allowing the peaceful demonstrators to continue. Moving on to Peru, its public ministry has requested that President Martín Vizcarra determine a date to present his defense over recent corruption allegations. The president has agreed to collaborate with the public ministry in the ongoing investigation. This comes after 10 arrest warrants originally issued against 10 former officials were lifted. The release order included Richard Cisneros, who is at the center of a political crisis in Peru centered on the embezzlement of public funds. 6 regions in Brazil's Sao Paulo state are set to begin a COVID-19 recovery phase, which includes the reopening of most public spaces.
6 regions of the state of Sao Paulo are moving forward, so now 76% of the state's population is moving towards the green phase of the Sao Paulo plan, including the state capital. From now on, there will be a little less restrictions in day-to-day life, as outlined in the Sao Paulo reopening plan.
The Brazilian National Institute for Space Research has reported that deforestation numbers between January and September of this year have already surpassed the total recorded in previous years. In September alone, 964 square kilometers of rainforest were cut down. At the same time, the number of wildfires in the Amazon region have increased by 61% when compared to last year. Nonetheless, the far-right government of Jair Bolsonaro has claimed to have undertaken effective policies to tackle the fires while also blaming affected communities for starting the blaze themselves. The government of Argentina has announced another extension of the COVID-19 quarantine. Nonetheless, a number of restrictions are still being relaxed. Let's have a look.
President Alberto Fernández announced the agreements reached with local governments to ease a number of restrictions. In particular, the partial reopening of schools in districts where COVID-19 cases have seen a steady decrease.
We have had to face a problem that was absolutely unexpected. The pandemic attacked Europe fast, and that served as an example for us. We knew what was coming, so we started to protect ourselves correctly. We have also been able to revive a health system that was in a deep crisis.
The president also insisted that he will do everything necessary to eradicate the pandemic in every corner of the country.
Our experience has guided us in order to prevent this pandemic from growing out of control. I ask of all citizens to continue following all health protocols.
Although infections in urban centers continue rising, the new measures announced will benefit less populated regions.
This chart shows us how the pandemic has evolved in Argentina. Back in May, in the Buenos Aires metropolitan area, cases started to peak until July, and the growth has been steady since then.
The president also announced the reopening of airports and bus terminals in all major cities. According to governors, the new phase of mandatory preventive social isolation will begin on October 12th.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Bolivia is set to hold presidential elections next Sunday after months of a political and economic crisis that started after last November's coup against President Evo Morales. For more, we turn to our special contributor in La Paz, Camila Escalante.
Bolivian media is deliberately working to manipulate national and international audiences by displaying polling results which obscure reality in an attempt to skew the public reception and narrow the lead that MAS candidate Luis Arce has over Carlos Mesa. There are 8 days until Bolivia's post-coup election. The latest poll, released Friday by Fundación Jubileo, shows Luis Arce of the Movement Towards Socialism with a 9-point lead over neoliberal candidate Carlos Mesa. Mesa is running on behalf of the coup regime, and that was formalized about 2 weeks ago when the Janine Áñez ticket dropped out of the race. Now the de facto Interior Minister Arturo Murillo has also formally backed Carlos Mesa. Watching Bolivian national news broadcast here, you would think that the 9-point lead that Arce has is actually just 6%, because what they are presenting in their results includes blank and null responses as well as undecided respondents. This significantly affects the numbers and is deceitful, as the election will be decided on valid votes only. In Friday's poll, 21.6% of what the media factors into their graphs won't even factor come election day. The MAS may very well win in the first round, but every single news channel is working around the clock to convince voters that the election has already been won by Carlos Mesa. The coup requires voters to believe that this will go to a second round, where a revolving door of pro-coup television analysts say that Carlos Mesa would have an advantage. Pro-regime media's job is to sell the idea that the movement towards socialism wins. If the movement towards socialism wins in the first round, that it can only be by fraud. This is the management of citizens' expectations, and it goes hand in hand with the constant attacks on frontrunner Luis Arce and political persecution against leaders of the MAS, and threats by Áñez, as well as by her defense minister, the interior minister, all of whom have said that the MAS will not return to power. And as U.S. officials and other pro-coup forces internationally have publicly stated their support for the regime and for what they call democracy and fair elections.
We thank Camila Escalante for that report. Moving on, Tanzania's opposition party has accused the Electoral Commission of the country's semi-autonomous region of Zanzibar of aiding the ruling party ahead of the country's presidential election. Tanzania's Opposition Act party says the Zanzibar's Electoral Commission of wanting to, quote, help the ruling CCM party in every way ahead of the country's presidential election on October 28th. Acts presidential candidate Saif Sharif Ahmad goes on to criticize the decision of Zanzibar's commission to organize 2 days of voting instead of one.
On one side, we think that we have conducted a very good, successful campaign. And really, I would like to praise the police. They have behaved very well this time. And they try to be just, really. But still we have a problem with the Zanzibar Electoral Commission. We find I think the commission is bent to help system in every way, really. So we're not happy with the way they are conducting.
A judicial panel in South Africa has ordered former President Jacob Zuma to testify over allegations of state corruption during his 9-year mandate. Zuma took office back in 2009 and was forced to resign in February of 2018 after a corruption scandal linking him to lucrative public contracts awarded to the wealthy Gupta family. According to the Anti-Corruption Commission's advocate, Paul Pretorius, at least 34 witnesses have implicated the former president in the alleged corruption.
Secretary of the Commission is hereby authorized and directed to sign and issue a summons requiring Mr. Jacob Zuma, former President of the Republic of South Africa, to appear before the Commission at 10 o'clock on the 16th to the 20th of November for purposes of giving evidence before the Commission and being questioned in order to ascertain certain matters relating to the subject of the investigations of the Commission.
Nigerians have taken to the streets to protest against police brutality. Hundreds of protesters marched in the capital city, Lagos, for the third day, denouncing the country's special anti-robbery squad, whom they are accusing of conducting unlawful arrests. The security department has already been recently suspended by the government based on the same allegations. But the demonstrators say the government needs to do more by bringing the perpetrators to justice.
A situation where you will walk on the road and somebody will arrest you for no reason, lock you up, and our government will do nothing. People have lost their lives. Innocent citizens have died for this cause. So for no reason, they have been killing us. They have been harassing us. They have been brutalizing us.
We're here because, our youth are tired of what SARS are doing to us. SARS are being brutal in this country, and it's not fair. We don't have our rights as youth of this nation, and it's not fair. The only thing we are here doing, we are protesting and asking the government to end SARS. We don't want them in our streets. They are killing our youth.
More stories coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. The second U.S. presidential debate between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden has been officially canceled due to coronavirus safety concerns. The second debate was originally scheduled for October 15th in Miami, and initially, the Commission on Presidential Debates shifted it to a virtual format following President Trump's COVID-19 infection. However, Trump rejected that idea, saying he would not participate unless the debate was in person. Meanwhile, the Commission reiterated its intentions to hold the final presidential debate on October 22nd in Nashville. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the Nobel Committee's decision to award this year's Nobel Peace Prize to the World Food Programme, noting that the humanitarian organization operates above the realm of politics.
World Food Programme. I warmly congratulate David Beasley, WFP Executive Director, and the entire staff of the World Food Programme on this recognition. The World Food Programme is the world's first responder on the front lines of food insecurity. We know that achieving zero hunger is an imperative for peace. A hungry world is not a peaceful world. I salute the women and men of the World Food Programme, and indeed the entire UN team, for all their efforts to advance the cause of peace and the values of the United Nations, today and every day.
China has announced that it is officially joining the COVAX Global Pact, an initiative led by the World Health Organization that seeks to guarantee fair distribution of COVID-19 vaccines.
China confirmed its promise of turning its future COVID-19 vaccine into a universal public good and joined the COVAX initiative, a pact led by the World Health Organization to guarantee a fair distribution of the new vaccine.
We are taking this concrete step to ensure equitable distribution of vaccine, especially to developing countries, and hope more capable. We are taking this concrete step to ensure equitable distribution of vaccine, especially to developing countries, and hope more capable countries will also join and support COVAX. As far as I know, quite a lot of Chinese vaccine developers have expressed willingness to join COVAX. The experts of both parties are in communication on vaccine R&D, approval, supervision, and technical standards.
China has 11 vaccines candidates against COVID-19 in different stages of investigation, and 4 of them are already in the final phase of the clinical trials with satisfactory results.
We have made great progress in the vaccines against the virus, and everything is going well so far. Of course, we want to share these achievements with the world so that everyone is healthy.
China is the largest country out of a list of 156 to integrate the initiative promoted by the WHO, working with private companies and governments to obtain funds and coordinate the fair and equitable distribution of all vaccines, especially in the poorest countries.
The fastest route to ending the pandemic and accelerating the global economic recovery is to ensure some people are vaccinated in all countries, not all people in some countries.
Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, China has defended international cooperation as the way to stop the virus, find a vaccine and achieve recovery. The position of the Asian country contrasts again with that of the United States, which refused to join the COVAX alliance, citing complaints about the work of the WHO.
TeleSUR, Beijing, China.
Authorities in Kyrgyzstan declared a state of emergency in the capital, Bishkek, on Friday in order to control a deteriorating political crisis. The announcement was made by the president, who noted the state of emergency will be in place until October 21st. Troops have also been deployed reportedly in order to establish checkpoints and prevent armed clashes. Massive protests have been ongoing following recent elections, demanding the annulment of the results and the release of political prisoners.
Dear compatriots, due to the excessive ambitions of some politicians, the peaceful life of our citizens and the tranquility in our country are jeopardized. Along with political ones, there have been provocative courts undermining the unity of the country and the peaceful life of society. Kyrgyzstan is a danger line. Dear Kyrgyzstanis, the peaceful life of our citizens mustn't be sacrificed to political passions. That's why the state of emergency has been imposed in the capital of the country, Bishkek. Today I have signed an appropriate order. Under my constitutional authority, I will do everything to save the peaceful life of citizens and the integrity of the country.
Morocco's King Mohammed VI has announced a recovery plan to confront the economic crisis triggered by the global pandemic.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable parliamentarians, this crisis has revealed a series of dysfunctions, deficits, and it has had a negative impact on the national economy and employment. This is why we have launched an ambitious economic recovery plan and a major universal social coverage project. We have also underlined the imperative to apply the rules of good governance and the need to reform public sector establishments.
The UK government has unveiled a new job support scheme for workers who will be left on the street when the furlough period ends on November the 1st. Under the new program, the government will pay 67% of salaries for hundreds of thousands of workers for 6 months.
So today I'm announcing an expansion of our job support scheme, specifically to protect those jobs of people who work in businesses that may be asked to close. If that happens, those workers will receive 2/3 of their wages for the time that they're unable to go to work. I hope that this provides reassurance and a safety net for people and businesses in advance of what may be a difficult winter. This is not a universal approach, this is an expansion of the job support scheme specifically for those people who are in businesses that will be formally or legally asked to close. So in that sense, it's very different.
Residents in central Scotland have reacted to the government's decision to shut down pubs and restaurants until October 25th, hoping to curb a recent spike in new COVID-19 cases.
I can see why they're doing it. It's one of those things. I get that there's obviously this global pandemic going on. It's not ideal, but I understand why they're doing it.
Completely understand why they've put in these, why they've shut the pubs and such, but I don't know if 2 weeks will make a difference. Will it be extended? I don't know, but I feel like at the end of these 2 weeks, it could just be the same situation as we've seen all over again, but,
Because it's becoming ridiculous that they're being targeted for what is in effect folk going out and enjoying themselves.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and in Nigeria channel 539. And also be sure to follow us on social media. For TeleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.